I got bored today and looked up some conspiracy theory bullshit from the years past that I debunked to see if it went anywhere. I do this every once in a while because most of these are fads. If you found this because you just discovered these subjects, and I'm going to cram a bunch of things in the title, you probably won't see it because YouTube is downranking me. No, they're not real. And oddly enough, I'm kind of let down. I mean, if you're going to predict the end of the world, can't we at least have a fireworks show? Micro electro-mechanical systems, MEMS. Smart dust, neural dust, and the dust network. Great brand names and, in fact, some trademarks, but and I'm not here to violate any of that. Therefore, you can't sue me. Also, a company or an entity named SENSIT, and also the expression MOTES, motes, which is used interchangeably between the neural dust, smart network, blah, blah, whatever you want to call it, and the other stuff, which may or may not be valid. 1997, an academic, Kristofer, I can't pronounce it, coined the term smart dust. He was dreaming up something for a paper. And I want to point out that most academics that discuss futurism base it on ideas you would find in sci-fi horror to get an effect during a speech at a college class or whatever. You know, like let's explore the rage virus in one of the movies. Well, we don't need to. We just went through what would really happen and why we're all really screwed. It has nothing to do with the disease. It has to do with human reactions to it. That's why we have zombie movies. If you're not aware of it, zombie movies are a symptom of human beings' fear of masses of stupid, scared, panicky people. And I'm going to say this. A lot of you have finally gotten to the point where we are now able to say that the current trying times, we're not allowed to even use the words anymore because we get flagged immediately. There's your dystopia. But yeah, we found out that, yes, it had a 0.9% death rate, which is absurdly bad for any contagion. We have to use special wording now so they don't get flagged. No, I'll still get flagged anyway. But you all saw that the biggest destructive thing, no matter what your opinion is the way we handled it. Because on a national, government, local, and most importantly, interpersonal level, everybody dropped the ball just about. That's what it looks like. Compliance was over 80 to 90% in the population. No, I'm not kidding. 80 to 90% of the population in virtually every country complied with basic orders like wash your hands, wear a mask, stay away from each other, try to not get sick. Yeah, some of you are really angry about that because it seems too low. Some of you are angry because it's not high. It's too high because you wanted a higher death rate. And don't lie to me about it. But that's another tangent. But you've been through why we have horror movies about zombies and horror movies about virus outbreaks. Nobody's going to... it's not the virus, it's our reaction to it. So anyway, 1997's horror idea was spraying little microchips everywhere and then somehow growing legs and moving around. Kristofer, I can't pronounce it, coined the term smart dust. That's a dumb idea. By 2004, it became infamous due to Hitachi doing a press release showing a presumed functioning version of smart dust. And it's now predicted to be a $200 million market worldwide by 2025 and maybe $700 million value by 2030 during the 2026 to 2030 forecast period. When I tried to look up any latest data, it's people talking up their GoFundMe campaign to create it. How do you know something is horse shit? When someone puts up a GoFundMe page trying to make something a thing. Hitachi did not really generate these. This technology as an idea has been around since large-scale and medium-scale microchips have been around. As an idea, it's been around since 1997, but has been experimented with and has ridiculous limitations on whether it'll do a damn thing. I repeat, even academics in countries where you can't get to them and make them, have the Men in Black show up, have stated we can't make it work because there's a bunch of things called, reality getting in the way of shit working. It won't work for what you think it is. Smart dust describes anything that's 1 millimeter across in every dimension or less, and is a device or a system, methodology, and then finally they changed it and kind of soft pedaled it, or as a component in, meaning it's not 1 millimeter or less, for wireless communication systems, sensors, based on semiconductors. Because if you're not aware of it, microchips can be made with ridiculously complicated designs on them. And you can make them very thin. You don't have to use the full thickness that we use for microchips for like your processor in your computer. And or you could be referring to micro electro-mechanical robot type things called MEMS. How much of this actually exists in a way that can be used in any way that you could expose to normal air conditions or humidity or any of the other confounding variables that immediately kills the shit within, this is the funny part, 4 seconds of exposure to ordinary air. Oh yeah, this shit only works in a beyond brain surgery level sterilized room with not just a neutral environment. A lot of them had to use argon gas because oxygen destroyed the shit too quickly. And it ranged in size from 1/10 of a millimeter across the biggest dimension all the way up to 2 millimeters, which is not micro anything and is not dust. It's more like smart sand, which is a good description of microchips in general. It can be swallowed by people. Agencies can track them with GPS. GPS requires you to use a fairly large antenna by comparison. The average one, the smallest ones that I've seen are about 1/2 inch across. It's because the antenna has to be this thing that's called a fractal or snowflake antenna. It ends up being much smaller than you would do for the old style cell phones that were a big brick. I understand that, but it's still too big to be millimeter sized. They don't have the ability to do that, and that's for just radio transmission and reception to be efficient enough for long distance, where you have a comfortable level of efficiency, Q factor, quality factor, from that antenna that has all its parasitic capacitance and inductance issues worked out. Doing it smaller than that, you end up with something that works at a shockingly short distance and can't go through anything with any water in it or any other materials, much less through your abdomen or through your skin, or, even if it's sitting on your hair, the hair could block the signal at this point. It is that bad if you don't use a bigger antenna. RFID chips can be tracked by special satellites. No. Your cell phone or an RFID-driven circuit or any circuit just picks up noise from the satellites that we use for deriving where we are on the planet using an algorithm and some lookup tables. All the work is done in that circuit. That circuit takes a lot of power compared to what a smart dust item would do. And no, they don't send a signal back to the satellites. And no, your cell phone doesn't send a signal to the satellite. I used to work at tech support for a phone company because I figured that'd be easy. And the amount of dumbassery I would hear on the phone was amazing. Well, they can track you when it's off. Number one, when you pull the battery, it's not an active transmitter. It's a dumb receiver only. Number two, satellites can't pick up your cell phone. That's period, full stop. And then someone will say, well, they have technologies that's imaginatively hundreds of years ahead. No, they don't. Because it's not powered and it's not sending a signal. You'd have to fire a shit ton of energy down at the planet and then try to pick it out of all of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other cell phones on your city block that would bounce back with, I'm here. And if you're not aware of it, cell phones send back a generic response to that, hi, I'm a cell phone. That's not going to identify anybody specifically. If it was able to do it, which, if you're not aware of it, they don't. It's a violation of human rights. We need a class action lawsuit. It's connected to the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which when you look that up, there isn't something like that. There's something like that, but that's not its name. One of the tropes in sci-fi is you find something real in the real world that you can make a sci-fi horror story out of and give it a name that sounds similar to it but is different enough that you can't find it on the net these days. No, that doesn't exist. There's a bunch of people typing that stuff. Media is always fact-checking us and sources. Like we can't think or research for ourselves. The media lost all credibility long ago. What they say and what my eyes see are vastly different. That's because you're not using your eyes, because you're talking about something that was never produced. And I mean that in a very direct sense. Hitachi Corporation in 2004 coming out with a press release about something that they do not want to talk about because if they talk about it, their stockholders at the time could sue them for falsely promising something. So they're not going to bring it up anymore. It failed. And instead of admitting that it failed, they just shut up about it. Basically, they have to keep doing that for an indeterminate period of time. Any lawyer will tell you that if you overpromise and underdeliver, talking about it at all gives somebody a soundbite to use in a court of law with a jury deciding it. The jury doesn't have to follow the damn law. They can just award on a civil case. And a bunch of people actually went after Hitachi and other companies who talked this shit up. Now it's under SENSIT and other names. And yes, some of these companies or entities you're looking up, they're probably just two guys in a garage, are trying to get money through GoFundMe. Let's move on. The government can track one person individually through RFID, GPS, and 5G tracking. You should be terrified. It's called a cell phone. If any of you are not aware of this, I'm going to bash you over the head with the Harley Quinn style mallet of fact, because truth is bullshit. Every one of you that screams the word truth or I can do my own research, no, we're smacking with facts. Here we go. Micro machines that are robots exist in an environment where I just mentioned the air quality that has to be done, and using very, very odd machinery to get things to work. They're not generally, you can just put it on the ground and it can walk. Not just from the exposure thing, just that you can't make it do anything. Examples of smart dust, which would just be RFID chips that would say, here I am, and then give you a unique number. That's actually practical. And was thought up and experimented with by Hitachi. And they found out that, again, it just didn't fucking work. An RFID tag, which they use these days at the store when you buy stuff, and tracking tags that you can get through FedEx or whatever, they actually use them. They're about that big because they need a pretty big antenna, because they have to have a big antenna. It's almost always going to require a bigger antenna than you think of. And it uses really a little smart chip. But the smart chip doesn't do anything on its own. Period. And it's cheap and available. Yeah, but let's imagine some weird universe, Men in Black, whatever, this could work. The radio frequency needed to get the little chip to work precludes it going through moist air. Higher and higher frequencies would be needed the smaller and smaller it gets, because you're not using a big antenna, so you can take advantage of the lower frequencies that can carry more power. You need to dump energy across a surface area. A conductive, wire, or a conductive surface that's printed out on a sheet of paper, something, or on a microchip. But it can't be a real microchip, because that's not going to work, unless you want to use bizarrely high frequencies for what you're going to get out of it, which isn't going to be much. So it limits your range to this far. RFID with the big thingy on it, the big, the 1 square inch ones like you get from the store thing, work at a distance from a foot to 35 feet, depending on how they're designed. But they top out at 35 feet because every other noise source in the room interferes with them. The inverter in someone's cell phone driving the LED backlight, or your laptop, or an MP3 player from the old days, or somebody's cell phone is going to produce so much noise that it's drowned out. Oddly enough, even though your cell phone is what's tracking you. No, period, they are. Just shut up. That's what's being used. Get over it. You have it in your hand probably watching this video. That's what's used to track you. Shut up and accept it. You've already bought into this. Just shut up. Live with it. It has all the components you're talking about. And you may have noticed it's pretty big. And by physically holding it, knowing about it, and being told constantly by people like me and everybody else that you're being tracked by it, including Snowden, you have opted in because you can't have a reasonable suspicion that you have privacy. Okay, it's not secretly done when you're holding it in your hand and watching me on it. And you have no right to lawsuit for it because the governments won't let you sue them, obviously. But yeah, as for the RFID chips being made that small, Hitachi just implemented them on the big stickers for tracking theft at stores. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. No, they don't exist yet. They never will, probably, because of limitations in reality.